Welcome to I Never Knew That About Britain. We're a nation of car lovers, and we own 40 million of them.
Did you know that the first Englishman ever caught speeding was going 8 miles per hour and was caught by a policeman on a bicycle?
Today we'll be looking at the driving force behind some of our most impressive innovations.
Tonight, it's the rules of the road. Why do we drive on the left?
Bring him on.
Susanna finds out.
Here he comes.
And what was the great British invention that has gone on to save millions of lives across the world?
Right here, where we're standing, was this fantastic gold-embossed monster.
What?
But first, I go in search of a hidden landmark in the heart of our capital. There's something I've always wanted to know. When I'm driving into London, the road signs tell you exactly how far it is to the centre of town. The question is, where in London is the centre? Where does it take you? We're going to find out. According to the Ordnance Survey, driving to the centre of London is 199 miles from Manchester, 403 miles from Glasgow, and 151 miles from Cardiff. It's also 245,000 miles from the moon. Well, roughly. How many of us know where those measurements are from or to? I certainly don't. I've always thought the centre of London must be near the seat of power. Surely the Houses of Parliament is the prime spot. Big Ben, is this the centre of London? Could be. The best person to ask has to be a London taxi driver. Here's one, we got one. Is this the centre of London?
No.
Where is the centre of London?
Charing Cross.
Can you take me there?
Of course I can.
Thanks. Charing Cross is certainly central, but is it the centre of London? Is there something there that can tell us for sure that we've arrived at the right place? Coming up to Dave's house, number 10 Downing Street. But we're not looking for Dave's house. There's always a crowd of people outside Dave's house. Thanks, Brian. So, that is it?
That is it. Eleanor Cross.
It turns out this statue outside Charing Cross Station is actually a replica of a statue called the Eleanor Cross. The real one was built 700 years ago by Edward I, who was completely heartbroken when his beautiful young Queen Eleanor died suddenly from a fever whilst travelling to see him. It's a little bit lost there, isn't it?
It is, but I guess if you're leaving Charing Cross Station, you're walking out into the centre of London, it's the first thing that you're going to see when you come out.
How much do I owe you?
£12.80, please.
Have you got £12.80? Anyone got £12.80? I haven't got any money. This symbol of a king's love could well be the centre of London. But there doesn't seem to be any kind of plaque. Surely there would be an inscription marking the spot. I reckon it's worth checking with another cabbie, since I've spent a bit of cash getting here. Cabbie, I've just been dropped here, and I've been told that this is the centre of London. Is that right?
I think you'll find it's right near the corner of Trafalgar Square.
So we're about a couple of hundred yards away.
Just off of Trafalgar Square by Whitehall, you'll find a plaque by one of the statues.
And that's it?
That's the centre of London.
Well, at least I can walk there. Turns out the Eleanor Cross has actually been moved, and it did used to be in the spot where the centre of London now is. But where is it? This is it, I found it, the centre of London. Look, on this site, now occupied by the statue of King Charles I. And there he is, on his horse, in the heart of Trafalgar Square, opposite Nelson's Column. I'm so pleased it's right here, because this site is known all over the world. But why is it here? And more importantly, why are all distances to London measured from this spot? There we are. Peter?
Oh,
Good to see you. Take a seat. Peter Bethune, a local historian, is going to tell me. And apparently, it's a remarkable story. Well, Peter, I have found the centre of London at last. I found the statue. I couldn't miss it because I'm a horse lover. But why is it there?
There's an interesting story attached to that. As a horse lover, you might be interested to know it's the first equestrian statue in London. In a
I
modern
didn't
style.
know that.
It's a beautiful statue, and it represents King Charles I. The statue was actually made during his lifetime.
Charles I was crowned king in 1625. During his reign, this huge statue was built in his honour. But after 24 years as king, it all went wrong for Charles. There was a bloody civil war between him and his parliament, and it ended with Charles having his head chopped off. Oliver Cromwell took over and decreed that anything royal had to go, including the statue. What Cromwell hadn't counted on was a local Del boy called Rivet.
It came into possession of a chap, a brazier, a metalworker, called John Rivet.
That's a brilliant name for a metalworker, Mr. Rivet.
Absolutely.
I love that.
And he was working in the City of London, and his undertaking was that he would melt down the statue.
Scrap it, yeah, melt
Indeed.
it down.
And he started selling cutlery made from the statue.
For the next 10 years, Rivet made a fortune from this cutlery. Cutlery, he claimed, came from the melted down statue. A Charles I dinner set, if you like.
And he could sell it to both sides. So he
Sure.
could sell it to the royalists who wanted a commemoration of the great king.
Yes,
and
a
they
little
could-
bit of the king. Yeah.
Yes, and to the parliamentarians who were only too pleased to sup their supper and think, the king is dead.
In 1658, Cromwell dies and the monarchy rises again. Charles I's son, Charles II, ends up becoming king.
When Charles II returned to this country and suddenly we had a monarchy again,
Yeah.
Mr. Rivet puts his hand up and says, actually, that statue that I said I melted down?
I've still
I didn't.
got it,
I've
because it's
still got
over
it."
there, look.
Absolutely.
So he became a national hero, or a rich man.
Well, he got 1,600 quid for selling it back to the king,
That's
so
a lot of money.
he did well.
That's the equivalent of almost £150,000 today. So on top of the money he made from the cutlery, this statue made this Del boy a very rich man.
Quite how Rivet saved the statue, we don't really know. Some people say that he buried it around
How
here.
can you bury a full-size statue of a horse with the king on top of it?
He was an enterprising chap, and in those days, most of what you'd be looking at was open fields. So
Sure.
it may have been, today digging a hole near Trafalgar Square and burying a statue, totally unlikely. But when it was open fields, a lot more possible. The statue survived, came into the hands of Charles II, who then wanted to erect it in a prominent site.
To right the wrong of his father's execution, Charles II placed the statue at the top of the very road where his father had been executed. And it's been sitting proudly at the top of Whitehall ever since, marking the very centre of London. I wonder how someone buried that. It's a big hole to dig. So next time you're travelling 209 miles from Liverpool or 282 miles from Newcastle upon Tyne to London, you'll know exactly where those distances are measured to. Well, I've walked past that hundreds of times before and I've never realised its significance. And for all the pigeons that poo up there and all the other people that trundle backwards and forwards every day, they probably don't realise that without the unlawful tendencies of a 17th century bronzesmith, the very heart of London, the point at which all distances to this capital are measured, might not have survived. And there it is.
We used to travel by horse. Now we tend to travel by car, but the rules of the road haven't changed as much as you might think.
I've always wondered why we drive on the left, given that most people in the world drive on the right. Is it just that we're being difficult, or is there some reason behind it?
I'm heading to Warwickshire to find out.
Apparently, it has something to do with horses.
In fact, I've always thought it had something to do with jousting. So I'm going to take the bit between my teeth, so to speak, dress as a knight, jump on a horse, and test out the theory.
Spin around, ready?
Yeah.
Then we're going to put some arms on.
Okay, great. Sure, that looked very fetching.
Got to protect the arms. And this common myth of knights not being able to move, the armour was so advanced, they were so articulate, that they could move around. I mean, there's manuscripts of knights doing cartwheels in suits of armour as part of their training. And then finally, your weapon. So you ready to go?
Yeah, let's go. Good.
Let's go.
Oh goodness, what have I got myself into? All this just to know why we drive on the left.
Are you ready?
Am I ready?
Yeah, are you ready for the Black Knight?
Yeah, bring him on.
Bring him on?
Bring him on.
Okay, bring on the Black Knight. Here he comes. That's it, kick him on. That's it. Yep. Perfect, yes.
Hang on a second, this can't be the answer. When I'm jousting, I'm on the right. So if it's not to do with jousting, why is it we drive on the left?
Yeah, good.
Well, this is all very well and good. I probably look cooler than I ever have done.
You look great.
But what has this got to do with driving on the left?
Okay, driving on the left. Now, most people were right-handed. Back in the day, you wanted to keep your right hand, your strong arm, your dominant arm free for your weapons, okay? So yeah, you're a knight going into battle, whatever it may be. You're a warrior with a sword. So you'd want to be able to draw your sword from the left-hand side of your body with your right hand, with a strong dominant arm. And then you had better chance of meeting your enemy with your right hand, with your strong sword as they came towards you. Hopefully then, you put yourself on the left, your enemy is on the right. Hence why we drive on the left.
How amazing that chivalric reason is the basis of why we drive on the left.
Yeah. They used to march on the left. You get on a horse on the left-hand side. Everything, carriage driving. You used to have the driver sitting on the left-hand side because he had his whip in his right hand, which was a very long whip, and he could reach all the horses to tap them, to tell them where to go. So it's the best place to be in order to have the best chance of your opponent or of seeing a road.
So from people fighting on the left, to carriages travelling on the left, to cars driving on the left.
So draw your sword. Okay, there you go. Feeling, I like the determination in the face. So I would draw my sword, and the idea is we would meet and we would charge towards each other. That's it, and we would strike each other. Now that's a lot easier for you to do with your right hand, isn't it? Yeah. Means business. Yeah, there you go. You see. So you're easier for you to do that on your right hand, isn't it? There you are, and then it's easier to move the horse round to the right. Got that tiny, do a nice big circle, you see? Now, there we go. There we go, she's off. Now that's because, now you would find that very, very hard with your left hand, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would indeed.
Because it wouldn't be as strong to wield the sword.
Very heavy.
It makes perfect sense that we travel on the left-hand side of the road because we used to fight with our right hand. But I'm pretty sure the rest of the world aren't all left-handed.
I think there's only a quarter of the population that drive on the left, and the rest of the world drive on the right. That's really thanks to Napoleon, who was left-handed.
Napoleon Bonaparte of France was a powerful man. He controlled an empire of over 40 million. He was also an egotistical maniac. And even though most of his army would have been right-handed, he insisted they copied him. Napoleon was left-handed.
And Napoleon would draw his sword, or made all the soldiers draw their swords, from the right-hand side with their left hand, okay? So that means their enemy had to be on the right. So completely other way around to the English. Every country he conquered, he would actually make them drive on the right.
So that's extraordinary. People drive on the right around the world because of Napoleon's egotism, but we actually drive on the left because of the original chivalric reason.
Of course, obviously, the best side of driving is the left, obviously. I mean, everybody knows that. I mean, they're all strange driving the right. Most people were right-handed. They had to draw their sword from the left. So I stand by the fact that we obviously drive on the best-hand side of the road.
Ha! I wonder if it was Napoleon's insistence that most of his army fight with their wrong hand that led him to losing the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. But to be fair, he clearly won the Battle of the Roads.
Isn't it extraordinary to think that we still drive on the left because of medieval chivalry?
Still to come. Steve discovers how an invention we still use every day solved the chaos of Victorian roads.
Right here, where we're standing, was this fantastic gold-embossed monster.
What?
Susanna, Steve and me, Paul Martin, are scouring the country for extraordinary stories. Tonight we're looking at the rules of the road. Steve has swapped the car for the train and is heading to London to celebrate a truly amazing invention that you see every single day. But how do the railways lead us back to the roads?
From the steam train to the standardisation of time across the country, Britain's railways have led to some amazing innovations. But one man's invention stands head and shoulders above the rest. We experience them in our daily lives around the globe, and they control and regulate our movement. Without them, we'd be in a lot of danger. As you're about to see, this is an explosive story. If you think roads today are congested, spare a thought for the poor Victorians. For less than 150 years ago, things were very different. No road signs, no markings or crossings, nothing to control the traffic, no organisation. Chaos ruled.
In the mid-19th century, streets were still medieval. They were narrow, tight, lots of horse-drawn vehicles, buses, carts, funeral corteges, bakers' delivery vans, butchers, you name it, in danger of literally grinding to a halt.
When you stepped out into the streets, you really were taking your life in your hands. Over 2,000 people were killed and injured on the streets of our capital alone every year. Clearly, crossing the road was a matter of life and death. Something had to give. And one man had one brilliant idea.
Hello, really great to meet you. What we need to now is get in the camera.
I'm meeting Professor Will Stewart from the Institute of Engineering and Technology to see if he can shed some light. So, Will, we know that the traffic was really bad. The Victorian Londoners needed a solution. So, what did they come up with?
They turned to the railways. There was this fantastic guy, John Peake Knight, a good Nottingham man, and he was at a very young age, he was in charge of the South West Trains, and the minute he stepped outside Waterloo, he got run over by a half carriage, or could have been. And he thought the railways who had the brilliant signalling system, so he decided to adapt this system for the roads.
John Knight's big idea was to take the semaphore signalling system from the railways and treat the roads as if they were railway lines. Like railway signals, the world's first traffic light would have a series of arms on pulleys and gaslit lamps to indicate stop and go.
They put a wonderful scheme outside the House of Commons, 25 foot high. It still had the lever arms, just like a railway signal. But at the back of it, it had the coloured lights as well. So they had red for stop and green for go. And we're going to see exactly where it was right now.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, look, the centre of London. Anyway, the colours we have for traffic lights originate from signalling flags and lamps used by the early railway. Red has always been associated with danger, and green was chosen as a strong contrast. Knight's prototype traffic light was unveiled in all its glory in December 1868.
Right. Now,
okay.
Where's this plaque?
Only problem is we've got to find it first.
Opposite here. The traffic junction we're looking for is that one. On the corner here. Now let's look over here. I think, yes, look, there's the plaque.
That's it.
So this is it. Right here, where we're standing, was this fantastic 20-foot high, green-painted, gold-embossed monster.
What?
And remember, it had the huge lever arms, but on the end there were the red and green coloured lights to make people stop and go, and it would have been these two directions of traffic that were controlled. And it was absolutely marvellous. For a month, it was fantastic.
Oh.
It probably saved a lot of lives in even that month. But at the end of the month, we had a disaster. They had a gas leak on the light, and there was an explosion. And the policeman operating it was actually very badly injured, and it just killed the entire idea.
Knight's experiment was a noble failure. After the explosion that maimed the unfortunate policeman, his high hopes that it would be rolled out across London came to nothing. It was the Americans that picked up the baton. They invented their own safer system, this time using electric lights rather than gas. London would have to wait until the 1920s to see traffic lights on its streets again, and that's after we imported the American version.
And all we've got left is a plaque on the wall and all these traffic lights copied from the Americans. How about that?
So we invented it, we gave up on it, and then we imported it back from America.
You got it.
In the 146 years since John Knight's traffic light, we've come from hand-operated cables and pulleys to more than 6,000 sets of signals in London alone. Globally, traffic lights have completely changed the world. And it all started with a man called John from Nottingham. So there you have it. Quite a sad story in many ways. John Knight never really realised the full potential of his invention. And I can imagine him sitting at home, probably racked with guilt because of what happened to that policeman. And ultimately, he would never have known that the traffic light, which is an invention that he first conceived of, would go on to change the world the way it did, and undoubtedly save countless lives.
So that's it for this week. There's just never enough time. But we're still on our mission across Britain. Next week, it's all about great British design icons. Susanna visits a graveyard with a difference.
So what is this place?
And Steve is looking at how a man from Ditherington changed the world's skylines.
It's such a daring building. It's
amazing.
Next, Maria's world is about to fall apart as she walks in on Marcus and Todd, a showdown in the show home on its way in Coronation Street. Then later, dark drama in our brand new series, The Widower, at 9.